Well, hello on a happy Monday night. Thank you for everybody for registering and attending this great webinar with our two fabulous panelists here with Bethany and Louise. So we're going to be focusing on fit family health and wellness. So we see it here in our practice constantly, how we're working with individuals, but a lot of the big struggles is coming with, how do you feed the family? So we wanted to extend not only for individuals for health and wellness and nutrition, but also for the family. So just a little bit of information on our two panelists. So we've got Bethany, who Bethany and Louise are both mothers. Bethany comes from a background of nursing, also holistic nutritionist. So she's gone through a lot of the issues with her postpartum, with her two kids, after earlier on, but now really focusing on health and wellness with majority of people, including a lot of families that she works with. Louise as well, so she's a bit of a scientist, immunologist, also a holistic nutritionist as well. So working through wanting to help families, children as well, but all sorts of individuals to extend their longevity. So I'm not going to take up much more time. So just a few things. If there's any questions throughout the session, they're going to be about 30 minutes. If you want to save to the ends, there's going to be a question period. You can press the button, raise your hand, and then we will go through the questions. So this recording will be available to you guys emailed tomorrow morning in your mailbox. So don't hesitate if you need to step out and go. It's going to be available to you guys. So without further ado, we'll leave it to the ladies to start the presentation. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Bethany Geddes, and I am a certified holistic nutritional consultant. And like Claudine said, I used to also be a nurse. I used to work in the diet and health industry, and I've been doing this for the past 16 years. And I also run my own business from home. I am a mom, and also I have two boys. They are 9 and 11 years old right now. And I totally get the chaos trying to balance the family, run a business from home, and somehow stay healthy while not losing my mind as well. So I've been there too. We have dinner time struggles in our house as well, picky eaters, wondering if the kids are getting enough protein and veggies, disagreements with the spouse about how much the kids should be eating, and feeling like I'm always responsible for planning and doing all the shopping as well, and also feeding my family on the go and also my own needs as well. So Louise, I know that you're also seeing this as well. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little about your experience?
Hey, hi, I'm Louise, a nutrition coach with Simply for Life, and also a mum of two busy middle schoolers. So I totally understand as well how many plates have to be spun all at the same time. My children are both really, really good eaters, actually, but I do have first-hand experience that can relate to the frustrations and that helplessness we can feel as parents of fussy eaters or kids with food-related issues. So my daughter actually had to go through cancer treatment at the age of 6. So her treatment made her very nauseous, but it also caused a lot of damage to her throat, to the point where she had to completely stop eating normally and be fed through a tube for several months. That led her to losing quite a lot of weight. And obviously we had to reintroduce her to food after her treatment finished. It was a really slow process, painfully slow at times. We had to be really careful not to push her too hard, as well as this physical aspect of her learning to swallow again. She had a big fear of being sick or causing pain to her delicate throat. So I'm glad to say we got there in the end. I'm so thankful that she now enjoys a wide variety of foods again. But these issues around eating can develop for a variety of reasons. And it's so important to keep children's relationship with food positive. Sometimes we need support with this. It can be very difficult if you feel you're the only family dealing with kids that won't eat, or you feel like you'll never be able to have a normal family meal like everyone else, but we're here to help.
Definitely. So thank you for sharing that with us today, Louise. I know that was really, really tough for you. So why we created this webinar is because we know, like, obviously firsthand how challenging it can be to keep up with keeping everybody healthy and happy, and energy and time is super limited being parents. So between us, we've worked with lots of families who are going through the same thing. So one thing I hear from parents is how stretched they feel. It's like you're stuck eating the same few meals, like every week, everybody kind of rotates the same foods and trying to keep everyone happy while juggling a million other things. So Louise, I'm sure that you see this in clients too all the time.
Yes, definitely. One thing I hear so much as well is that parents are confused and overwhelmed. So the information around nutrition is ever changing. Parents don't feel they can stay up to date. You know, we've had low fat, low sugar, peanuts introduced at what age, early or late, for allergy prevention. And this one actually changed in between the birth of my two children. So that advice is always changing and you don't know if you're doing things right or not. Also, parents struggle with food to send with their child into school. So you want a packed lunch that's going to stay fresh. You also need to comply with those allergy rules, and they seem to vary between schools as well. You want healthy snacks that won't just end up in the garbage. And cost is such a huge consideration. Also, the environmental impact on food waste. So I'm just going to go over a few slides now to outline some of the issues that children are facing around nutrition and health. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll just get you to turn your attention to the slideshow. Okay. So looking at nutritional deficiencies in kids. So vitamin D, a significant number of Canadian children are at risk for vitamin D deficiency, especially in these winter months now that the weather's getting colder, there's not as much sunshine and they're spending more time indoors. Iron, so studies have shown that an iron deficiency does remain a concern in children with low dietary iron intake. So the main at-risk groups here are infants, toddlers, and adolescents. Calcium, so a lower dairy consumption and also dietary restrictions can lead to a reduced intake of calcium. Fruits and vegetables, so quite often we're seeing children falling short of the recommended intake of fruits and vegetables, which can obviously lead to a risk of vitamin and other essential nutrient deficiencies. Omega-3 fatty acids. So inadequate intake of fatty fish. It's so important for brain health for all of us, but children especially. Consequences of these deficiencies are impaired growth, cognitive delays, and also, you know, we're not supporting our immune system, so susceptibility to infection. Now, sugar. So many children, unfortunately, are consuming excessive sugar on a daily basis, which is impacting their health quite significantly. So you have sugary drinks, like the obvious ones like sodas and energy drinks, but also fruit juices have a huge amount of sugar in them. You've got candies, baked goods, and my personal bugbear are the processed fruit snacks. So the fruit snacks that are marketed to seem really healthy and they're just not really any better than eating candy. You've got your instant oatmeal packets. So porridge is a great way to start the day, but you'll find that these instant oatmeal packets quite often have added sugar, and also your sugar-laden yogurts. Protein. So protein intake is generally adequate through a balanced diet, but what we need to look at here is the protein quality. So processed meats or a low variety of different proteins in the diet could mean that some essential amino acids are being missed. And then food allergies. So food allergies have been on the rise. So now between 6 and 10% of children in Canada have a food allergy. And the most common ones are to peanuts or tree nuts or eggs. These increases in food allergies, we don't really know why, but there's many possible reasons. Could be due to the dietary changes. So as I was saying before, when to introduce different allergens to the diet in children. We have environmental factors, food industry practices as well. So that's especially so with dairy and wheat. Genetics, changes in the gut microbiota, and also the hygiene hypothesis. So are our immune systems working overtime on allergies because we're just all too clean now. Okay, so I'm just going to leave you with this video. It has a really strong message here of the importance of not only what we eat, but also what those meal times look like for our children.
If you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would you choose? Kylie Minogue.
Oh. Marilyn Monroe. Oh God, I wouldn't have a clue.
I know, straight up. All over. Kim Kardashian.
No. I'd like to have dinner with Justin Bieber. What?
He's not coming to mind.
No. I'd have Bob Hawke.
Dave Hughes.
Barry Humphries.
Jimi Hendrix.
People who have made a difference in the world, maybe Nelson Mandela at the dinner table. I'm scared.
If you could have dinner with anyone in the world, who would you choose?
Probably our whole family, like a whole extended family. Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad. Does it have to be a celebrity? Could it be family?
We love it. We talk about how school is. We ask Mum and Dad how their day was.
Family.
Yeah, Mum and Dad.
Family. Who would you like to have dinner with? They just want to be with us while they're eating food, which is pretty cool. They see us above everything. I'm gonna get that. Yeah.
Bit of a message in it for me.
Yeah.
What are we having for dinner?
That always gets me, that video. I think it just speaks so true, I think, too. I know you probably feel the same way, Louise, with that, with seeing that the kids, want the family there instead. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about some topics kind of around this, because I think what comes up is quite a few of these things that we're seeing. So the first one we're going to come up with is parents feeling super overwhelmed by health choices. So many parents kind of coming confused, going like, what's best for my family? There's so much conflicting advice. Definitely Dr. Google seems to be a bit of a problem. There's always trends and diets to follow, and we're teaching our kids by example here. So the first thing that we also deal with is like struggling with picky eaters. This comes up quite often as well. So parents often tell me they're making 2 meals, one for the kids and one for themselves, because their kids are eating, certain things, and they want to eat certain things themselves, what's healthy, right? So a couple of things that you can sort of do to sort of mitigate this is overcoming mealtime stress and picky eating, because it seems to be the dinner time is the battleground for most families. The first thing I would usually advise is to involve the kids, let them choose the ingredients, especially starting at the grocery store. This would be like getting them to buy like a couple of little veggies and things that they want to pick out. Even like young little kids can really sort of look at something, say like, I want that red thing over there, which is like a red pepper. A gradual introduction to, so offering new foods with favorites. So, Louise mentioned, sometimes there's aversion to food. So sometimes if you associate that food with something they really like, it can kind of be that pair. So an example is like putting ranch dressing all over their vegetables, because they love ranch dressing. So, or dipping is another one. Big on little kids as well, is like they want to dip their food into everything. So if you want to start with something like that, like ketchup is a good one too, even though it's sugary and things like that. We want to kind of get them introduced to vegetables in a pleasant way, not in a forceful way. Staying calm is a big one, because I find a lot of parents are tense. They're tired at the end of the day. And this is where we want to keep meal times more enjoyable as a family, and establishing a routine as well. So setting regular meal times. So this has kind of been a bit more of a problem, more with technology. We've noticed over the years is that, families it's sitting in separate rooms on iPads, computers, cell phones, and they're eating and they're watching their screens instead of coming to the family table. Like the kids mentioned, the kids want that, right? So a big one that comes up too, like this is a massive one I see, is lack of time to focus on family health. So between work and school, maybe you're running a business, maybe you've got extra like activities with the kids. It feels like there's no time left to kind of make healthy meals or even exercise as a family. So a couple of ideas for you would be to batch cook. So this is something that I do in my family, is prepare and freeze meals in advance. So like whenever you're making a dinner, I always make kind of double, because then at least I have leftovers and it can feed, you know, my partner, or it can feed the kids an extra meal. It really helps because, say, you know, you're doing an extra activity and you come home and you're like, I don't have the time to make a dinner. You already have something that's kind of pre-left over, whether you've had it in the fridge from the night before or you've put it in the freezer for another day. Another big one I really like personally using is one pan meals. So this is minimizing cleanup as well, because nobody likes doing dishes. And this really helps. We kind of just putting everything on one tray, we're putting it in the oven, but I'm not talking about chicken nuggets and fries with the one pan sheet. I'm talking about like making yam fries. Again, they can use their dip. You can put some roasted veggies in there. You can put a couple of pieces of protein, obviously put some healthy oils on it to make it taste nice. Another one is repurposing leftovers. So we're big on this one too, where we have lots of leftovers and we're going to use them for another creative meal. So for example, maybe we've had taco night and we've got all this ground meat left over and a couple of veggies that kind of didn't make it to the plate. We'll turn them into nachos the following day. So it's kind of just repurposing what you have. I'm very big on that because, again, what Louise mentioned is you also want to save money as well. Like you don't want to be keep buying more and more ingredients. So kind of repurposing what you already have left over. Another big one for kids especially is pre-packed snack boxes. And this even works for adults too. And I always advise adults to pack an extra for themselves, because we always, as parents, seem to pack for everybody else, but not ourselves. So pre-packing like a healthy snack pack box ahead of time is really, really helpful. And I even keep stuff in the car for myself because, you know, I'm doing that too, where I'm on the go and I'm needing something in the car, and maybe I just put some trail mix in there just in case I'm stuck in traffic, which has happened a lot. Another big one that comes up is parental guilt. So a lot of parents come up with saying that they feel like they're not doing enough, maybe for their kids' health when it comes to their kids. But we're here to tell you no one's perfect, and small steps do make a big difference. And you have to really start out small anyways, because you can't sort of introduce everything all at once, or you're going to get a bit of rebuttal from the family members, unfortunately. And then the big one, I think a lot of parents see this one usually around holidays, birthdays, Christmases, Halloween's coming up, is managing kids' energy level with nutrition. So, you know, I see this firsthand with my boys, being 9, 11 years old, giving them any kind of sugar, they're, you know, high as a kite and they're running around like crazy. So we want to make sure that they're getting a balanced meal. So if I know that they're going to be having kind of candy for Halloween or Christmas treats or things like that, I'll always make sure I feed them properly first, because I'm the one that's going to regret it later otherwise. So this is where Louise was mentioning about kind of the right foods to put in for your kids. Is complex carbohydrates. So this would be like your whole grains, your fruits that actually have fiber in them, not fruit juice, because that's just pure sugar. This would be like yam fries instead, root vegetables, carrots, turnips. You can always turn them into fries as well, which I find is really helpful. A big one for kids is protein as well, because we seem to always wonder like our kids are not getting enough protein. So protein at every meal, usually including a little bit of lean meat and beans, you know, hummus in there. You can always do kind of the alternative protein as well. I do hear often that children are averted to protein for like a certain amount of time, but you got to sort of remember they go through phases as well. And a lot of it can be like texture and things like that. So, you know, depending on the child, they may be sensitive to sort of different smells, different textures of foods as well. Hydration, making sure they drink enough water throughout the day. So obviously if they're hopped up on, you know, sugary drinks, whether that's fruit juice and we think it's healthy, we actually need to add more water into their daily meals as well. And avoiding energy drinks, just because obviously they're going to be high in sugar content as well. And then kind of one of the last couple of things is fitting fitness in as a busy family. So finding the time to sort of work out as a busy parent, and the fact that my kids are also half sort of homeschooled. So I understand like what it feels like when they're always around. And it can feel impossible, but you actually have to sort of carve out that time for yourself, especially, looking after yourself first. For me, I do that usually when my boys are at school for a couple of days. They just go a couple of days a week, and I will go do my workouts or just before I pick them up. And we do a lot of stuff on the weekends together too. Like we are big on like nature walks, and definitely in the summer, I'm getting them to hike a little bit more as well, and kind of just burning them out. Having two boys, if anyone's got like, well, kids, but boys in general, they have a lot of energy. And so typically, even when we've, walked them and they're still pent up with energy, I'm like, go run that set of stairs up there. And they'll run them like 3 times and come back. So we're trying to sort of wear them out and just making it fun. So creating games like scavenger hunts is really, good for them as well. Active transportation. So if you live close by to a school or different shops, then I would advise taking your bike. That's another good way to kind of get them as well active. Daily exercise, so using like short bursts. This is one that we did at home, especially throughout the pandemic and everything when we couldn't get outside, was jumping jacks and running up and down the stairs and kind of doing those sort of things, like fun activities. And then family workouts, like I said, just kind of like nature hikes, walks around, exploring new places, like kind of find out like in your local city, or if you have, like, we're lucky, we're in Calgary, so we're close to the mountains. So we go out there quite often, and we get the boys to kind of do lots of nature walks and stuff with us as well. And then kind of last but not least is the parental burnout. So, I feel like this myself sometimes too. We feel like we're running on empty. And just honestly taking those 30-minute breaks for yourself, even if you have like little kids. Like I used to do this even when my boys were very little. Is just go outside for some fresh air. I'm not talking about like walking away from the house and leaving them be, but just sit on your front steps, sit on your back steps, maybe get some coffee or a tea, and put some earphones in sometimes because they are loud and they're screaming and running around. So sometimes it's just kind of that like mental break that you really need, and it's essential for your sanity. So Louise, how do you actually recharge as a parent?
Yeah, sometimes 30 minutes can be absolutely essential for my sanity too. So for me, I try to be very protective of my bedtime so I can prioritize a good night's sleep. This means I can get up early enough to fit in some form of exercise for myself before that morning rush begins. I find I always feel much better if I start the day with some movement, and like at 5 in the morning, there's no time to think of excuses. You just get up, get your gear on, and off you go. And if the day gets busy, I know that I won't make time for that later on. Mm-hmm. I also, like you mentioned, Bethany, I like to meal prep, especially for those days that we have activities on in the evening. But as well as evening meals, I like to try and meal prep breakfasts as well. So I'll make big batches of overnight oats that everybody can just dive into in the morning. And also I find something as simple as breaking eggs into a bowl and whisking them up and then putting them in the fridge before bed. It just means that you don't have to make that decision about what you're going to have for breakfast. It's there. You can just grab it. If whichever child is down first and ready, they can start it off. Everybody knows where they stand. They know what's for breakfast and they know how to get it going. So that can be a real time saver as well. As you mentioned, Bethany, we also do our family workouts together. So we either have a sweaty Saturday or a sweaty Sunday. So we'll just do, a group little circuits. We'll let one of the kids pick the playlist so we can all just be a bit silly and dance about. And you can do this, we're really lucky. We have a gym space at home, but you could do it with zero equipment. You could do it with not very much space. And we're always here. We can help with that kind of thing. We can give you ideas. So yeah, movement is good, and doing it as a family is even better.
I love that. I think you touched on the choices. I think that's huge for if you want kids to be involved, whether that's food or exercise. give them the choice of the playlist or colorful vegetables, anything like that. So we get it. We've been there. We're here to help. And that's why we put together this family health package. And it's easy for you guys and it's sustainable for families because we know how chaotic things can completely get. So whether you want to book here in person with Louise at Simply for Life or virtually with myself, we're definitely here for you. So thank you so much. And we're going to open up the floor to anybody that has any questions for us.
Hey, it's Claudine here. I won't get on the video, but I do have a question from someone who is asking, how do you manage nibbling at night with the kids?
Do you want to take the first one, Louise?
Oh, so nibbling at night, we try and minimize time sitting down after dinner. My kids at the moment are at the age where they actually have a fair bit of homework to do in the evenings, or they're out doing activities. So after we've all eaten, we tend to we try to make the end of the evening meal, the kitchen then closes for the night. So sometimes, sometimes at the weekends we'll sort of be a bit more flexible, but through the week, we tend to close the kitchen, as we say, at the end of dinner. And that kind of stops the late night snacking and the nibbling going on.
Perfect. Thanks, Louise. Has anybody else has any question? You can raise your hand or write your question in the Q&A box. Ooh, we've got one here. Andrew Holmes, you are on. If you want to, I will unmute. If you want to ask the questions to Louise and Bethany, go ahead.
For sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for this so far. Okay. So, question I have is our daughter, she is 8 and, she's picky, of course. And I get into this spot where she's not eating what's being given to her, and instead of offering her something else, I'm just like, just move. Okay, if you don't want to eat, that's your decision, move on. And my thinking is, you may not eat this and that's all that there is to offer at this time, but you're going to eat your next meal, because eventually hunger is going to kick in and your taste is no longer going to be priority, it'll be hunger. But then I'm like, well, I don't want to see her go without food either. So I'm kind of playing this weird game of like, should I do that, or should I give her something that actually, like, something else? I kind of get stuck. I'm not sure if that question makes sense, but I think you see where I'm going.
I would ask, what is she averted to? Is it like a specific food, or is there different types of foods that she's averted to?
So I'm Caitlin, I'm Andrew's wife.
Hello.
I don't necessarily know if she's averted to, she's a picky eater, but she eats for pleasure, not for fuel. She's all about, I don't want that, because she'd rather have this 3-course luxury, exactly what she wants, kind of. So I just find her relationship with food isn't healthy, because she just expects to have the most delicious meal every meal, rather than focusing on what is actually important for her to eat at that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like tonight, for example, we had leftover soup from Thanksgiving. I froze it and I took it out, kind of like one of your suggestions. And we had that, and I said to her, sweetheart, like, Daddy doesn't love this tonight. Like, it's not my favorite meal ever, but it's filling us up and it's great and it was quick and it's fantastic and all these things. So try to explain to her that not every meal is going to be like 5-star.
Right. So the thing is, with children, you kind of want to get them sort of early in the day. And usually that's probably where they've eaten the most of their calories. So depending on sort of like how her breakfast and her lunch is gone, the dinner time seems to be the hardest, because children aren't always completely hungry and they're kind of expecting, yes, like sort of that gourmet at the end of the day dinner. And it's like, oh, it's a leftover. Like, I don't like soup. I don't like this or that. What I would suggest, being at her age, it's kind of like, I know what you're saying. Like, we've made one meal, we're not making more.
Right.
And I would usually just always offer and say, like, well, this is what's for dinner. Did you want to add something to it, maybe to enhance it for yourself? So maybe she wants to put hot sauce in it. Maybe there's some like crackers she wants to dip in it. Like maybe give her that kind of choice of like, what do you want to sort of add in to make it better for yourself? I would then just say like what Louise does in terms of like the kitchen is now closed. Like once we're done, that's it. Because she might be waiting for a snack after or something. Sometimes that's what happens, or waiting for mom and dad to make another meal.
Yeah, she's like trying to call our bluff.
Yeah, and it is that. It is just, this is where it becomes a bit like, well, are we feeding them enough? Like, yes, usually throughout the day, they've probably had quite a bit. And kids are quite easy to like, they graze throughout the day and they're pretty good at like balancing out their food. So with kids, usually I try not to give it attention, because the problem is the more attention you put to it, they're going to use it, right? And if you guys are on different playing levels, kids use that too as well, right? Because they're kind of going to find the easiest parent to give them something else, right?
Yeah.
With the kids, I would just say, give them the option. This is, dinner is 30 minutes long. This is how long. And she doesn't eat it, depending if it's leftovers or not. Like if it's something I've just made, I'll say, okay, we'll put it in the fridge and you can have it for the next meal. And don't make any more about it, but then they miss out on dessert or anything like that, because the problem is they may be waiting for that, like, okay, but I get dessert after. So it's just kind of keeping to your guideline and sticking to sort of what you want as a family. So I think this is more the conversation around you guys talking first, not in front of, because I think if you guys can kind of come together on like, well, what do we agree on? The kids will see that as a united front.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yes.
It does.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any other questions?
All right, thanks, guys. There are 2 more questions that have come in. So the first one here is, what about talking supplements to cover any gaps if they don't eat enough fruits and vegetables? That's one question. And the other one is, any recommendations on ideas for children with ADHD, tips and tricks for food aversions? So if you're going to start with the first one on the supplements for any nutritional gaps, what's appropriate for kids?
Louise, do you want to take that one?
Yes, so I would say obviously it's always better to cover as many micronutrients from whole foods as possible. But things like vitamin D, it's recommended that everybody takes a vitamin D supplement through the winter months. So I would definitely make sure your kids have a vitamin D K2 supplement. Also going back to the omega-3s, if your child doesn't eat oily fish, I would say that's definitely a beneficial supplement for them to have as well. If your child really is very fussy and doesn't eat many sort of fresh fruits and vegetables, then you could look at extending that to a multivitamin. But I would say, working towards having the child covering as many of those micronutrients as possible from their food is definitely the best option.
Okay, thanks, Louise. The other one, the ADHD question.
Can you just repeat that one for me? Sorry.
Any recommendations on ideas for children with ADHD, tips and tricks for food aversions?
This one comes up quite a bit for ADHD. It typically usually involves, what I've noticed, is texture, and they're very sensory focused. So if it's yucky and it's slimy, or if it's a certain thing, they're really averted to it. With ADHD, I would say be mindful of sort of keeping things basic to start. Keep the food simple. Sometimes it's even separating the foods a little bit more on the plate, just so they can see them. And then it might also be just because you're combining too many things. So kids, sometimes if you add a lot, like we talked about the soup, like if you're adding a lot of sort of ingredients in, it's very overwhelming for a kid because their palate isn't quite there yet. As they kind of change and develop, they will start to get different kind of tastes involved. With ADHD, I would also encourage more healthy fats to help sort of with the brain health, and also lowering sort of the hyperactivity as well, which is usually missing, and limiting processed sugars and things like that. So healthier snacks, and maybe getting them to have a few more choices. So that would be getting them to sort of, which one, give them maybe a couple of options depending on sort of the age range too. So I hope that answered the question.
I think so. There's no other questions. So we'll just leave a couple more seconds. If anybody else wants to add a question, go ahead. Oh, is it best to have both parents working with a nutritionist for a child or just the one? Because we see, I think, that struggle with when we work with our own clients, typically the mother is there, but what is the advantage of having both parents working with somebody like you guys?
Yeah.
Okay. Typically it's usually the mom I see, but it is very helpful to have the other partner involved because we kind of want everyone to be on the same playing field. I think the biggest thing I notice is sometimes what happens is there's two different opinions going on. And sometimes it could be a cultural thing, the way I've grown up with food versus you've grown up with food. And that's where it becomes a bit of a struggle and the kids don't really know who to listen to at the table. So it is ideally the best way to have both parents involved so we can kind of come together to make the plan together and kind of talk about maybe what each one of you struggles with in terms how you feel about food versus how the other person does. And we can kind of make sort of a new guideline together. If you want to do it on your own, that's totally fine, but it is just more helpful having both parents.
Great answer. Thank you. So we don't have any more questions coming in. So we want to thank everybody for attending tonight. We're going to be sharing the recording. And again, as Bethany and Louise mentioned, we are developing this new program to work with families. So we would love the opportunity to work with you and develop this a little bit further. So watch for the email tomorrow with the links and information. And then we're always here for any questions. So thanks again, and to a happy, healthy family life with you guys. So have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.